Becoming a play partner using ESDM principles and methodology. We are going to learn about joint activity routines, which it sounds, just break it down, joint. So it's something that happens between two people and they're participating in an activity, and we turn it into a routine because children learn best from routines. So we think about different things that your child enjoys doing with you where it is maybe even movement based, where they're jumping or they're sitting on your lap and you're bouncing them, or they like to swing. But the most important part is that you're looking at each other, you're giving things to each other, like if it's social, or you're imitating each other. And so that's what makes up a joint activity routine. And it's definitely something that has to motivate your child, that they enjoy it, because they enjoy the interaction with you. And so that type of motivation makes for active learners. So those are the times when your child is motivated, that you can teach them things. And so the more that we can think about those activities that your child likes, even if it seems silly to you, like it's, they like to put shaving cream on their face when you shave your face, or they like to, when they throw something in the trash, they like stepping on the button. All of those little things that they enjoy, we can turn them into little routines and then have more success because they're motivated and they know what to expect. And so then we can build communication and interaction. So there's two types of routines. There's an object-based routine, so something that takes place around an object, and usually the goal is to work on the ability to do that routine. So it's on skill development. So things like stringing beads, pointing to pictures in a book, working on pointing, imitating, drawing shapes, things that are hard for the child and you have to introduce them and teach them. So those are object-based. And then there's sensory social routines. And the sensory social routines is a lot more to do with the back and forth with eye contact, body language, gestures, much more physical. Those are more sensory social routines. Things like tickling, playing chase, jumping up and down together, swinging, or singing a song. Those types of things are more sensory social routines. And so both of the routines, the object-based and the sensory social, when you're thinking about which one your child already participates in that you can, build from, think about things that are motivating to them and that they enjoy doing naturally, and think about what we can build off of that. So let's talk first about sensory social routines and break them down a little bit more. These are joint activity routines where the partner's attention is focused on the person only. So there's no objects involved in the sensory social routine. It's a lot to do with just the interaction. That's why things like the songs, or where you pick your child up and tickle them and put them back down, or something like that, some sort of game that you might play, even if it's roughhousing, we can build a sensory social routine out of it. And what it means is that you're doing the activity and then you stop. And then you wait for your child to request for you to continue the routine. And that stop that you make usually surprises them or makes them laugh, and then they of course want to do it again. So that's the moment that you teach them that their communication means something. So you when they just look at you with their, make eye contact with you the first time, start the routine again, jumping and let's just say this one's jumping, and then stop, and then wait for them to look at you or make a sound, and then can start the routine again. And that's basically how you start getting your child to understand that their communication means something. And so the first way that they show us is through eye contact. And so first we say eye contact is plenty. If you look at me, I'll do the routine again. And then when they get really steady at, looking at you when they want more, you want to get them to gesture, or to make a sound that says they want more, like, ah, or, like reaching to make, so those some sort of request. And then once they have sounds, then you want to have them say words like more or up, and asking, requesting for the activity. So that is how you build a routine into an interaction. And so think about sensory social routines that you already do. As I said, chase, swinging, jumping, singing songs, tickling, even roughhousing, that you could turn into a routine where if you stop it, you can get your child to request more somehow. And so this is all about fun and engagement. And so this is just a part of one methodology that we use to teach the ESDM principles. But it's one of the first ones we use as well, because this is the one that can pull your child into more interactions with you. And the other part to think about with sensory social routines is when you're doing them with your child and you're stopping, and they're having fun, then you can use that as an opportunity to build their attention span on interactions. So at first, maybe you only do it once or twice, and and they're having fun, and then they kind of lose interest. But maybe the next day you do it again, or do it a little differently, and so they're attending to you, and maybe maybe 4 times this time. And so getting them to engage in things that they like, and having them focus on one activity with one person for an extended period of time is really good for their brain development at this point in development of those skills. So making the sensory social routines last longer and longer, not longer than like 2 minutes, but increasing the interaction is really great for your child. So what we were just talking about, but I'll get into a little more detail now, is what you want to work for during sensory social routines. So you want to teach your child that communication gets results by when they thinking about the motivating thing that they enjoy doing the most, or the sensory social routine that you have established already, and you want to turn it around as much as you can so that you stop the routine or initiate the routine, but only because of eye contact, or only due to your child reaching for you to do it again, or just the sound. And so waiting is the hardest part with sensory social routines. It's hard to just wait, but you may really need to wait a long time initially for your child to get the skill. So I'm going to talk through how to do this one more time in a different way with bouncing on a ball. And so what you're looking for first is eye contact to continue bouncing. Then once they have eye contact, you want to add gestures. As we had mentioned before, gestures are next. Then after they have gestures down, you want to add verbalization. So ba ba ba, or muh, or up, any type of sound that can go along with it to hopefully lead into word approximations and then eventually words and phrases. So with the focus on communicating, getting results, you put the child on a big exercise ball. Say that they love this already. And you bounce, 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 stop. And they laugh, and then you bounce, 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 stop. And they laugh, and then you bounce for a while, and then you stop, and you don't continue. You count like 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3. And if the child, and you're looking at the child very expectantly, and the child hopefully is looking at you, and then you bounce, bounce, bounce. If your child isn't looking at you when you bounce and you stop, then what you want to do is make a sound or something that draws their attention to your face, and then you bounce, 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 bounce. So that's a critical thing, that you're only tying in bouncing with the eye contact. So sometimes you're going to have to do something goofy in the middle to get their attention back on you, so that they can associate the fun stuff with the eye contact. And so, yeah, waiting for the routine to continue until the child makes a request is the most important part. You can also do this in singing. So you're singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, da, 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 and then you stop and you wait, and then like a diamond in the, and you just wait and look at them expectantly, look right in their eye and see if they'll say, and then if nothing, then you say, sky, twinkle, but when you're doing that first, when you're first teaching it to them, keep the waiting time at about counting to 3 in your head, and then see if they are staying with you. If they're not staying with you and they look like they're getting bored, then you're going to have to wait a shorter period of time before you jump back in. It just kind of will give you a gauge on how long your child's attention span is. And if you stop, you know that they're super motivated, you stopped singing or you stopped the interaction, and until they start looking away and getting bored, that's the time span you have. So you may have to make the action happen again more quickly right away, as opposed to waiting longer, or else you'll lose their focus. All right, so, and make sure to praise their attempts as well. So when they do reach or say the sound or whatever, aside from just bouncing them, say, whoa, really good job talking, or yeah, you said go, or you said more, are all good ways to praise attempts at talking. So when we're, just to be clear on the goals, you want to draw your child's attention to other people's social cues first, because that's a visual thing, which would be easier to pick up on. So working on eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, look at how they are posturing or standing. So really thinking about the fact that your child will need more support in the area of picking up on social cues and how to negotiate social interactions. They need really direct, straightforward instructions. And with regards to sensory social routines, this is where we start. We start first drawing their attention in to other people's faces, and then we build that skill up to carry over into other situations and routines. So, we just want to get them interested in eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, maybe not really knowing what they mean, but just being interested in them, and anticipatory movements like, oh, I'm going to, do what's going to happen next. And then the second thing is we want to with sensory social routines, start having them develop some sort of awareness of their ability to share their own facial expressions with others, and how those facial expressions share emotions with others, and like what a smile means, and what a frown means. All of those things. First, they have to be aware of them before they can understand them and be empathetic when faced with them. And so that is the basis of a sensory social routine, tuning into a face. So our kiddos are generally less socially motivated, so they don't really, aside from just catching on to what's going on socially, they don't really enjoy interacting with other folks. But that is really very much on a spectrum. So some kids are very social, but they just don't know how to interact, and they don't know what words to say. So what it is definitely there's a challenge socially in some way. So they're harder to connect with during playtime. And this is why when we're working on things like joint attention routines, we have to use different methodologies. So sometimes we're using the sensory social routine, like we're talking about now, and sometimes we're using objects. And so when we're trying to get them more socially interacting, we use the sensory social routines, and we also want to see what other things we can build into routines that they enjoy, especially if we've got a few that we already know work. Usually we're looking for 8 to 10 sensory social routines to be developed in different ways. And there's lists of them in your textbook, an early start. And so they're, I think, on page 90, but they give you a lot of different ones that you can try with your child to see which ones work best, with the goal and the motivation staying, connecting with your child, which gives them more motivation to interact with you, and they'll be more active in the learning process. So they're all about connection, communication, and fun. And so we want the children to learn these very specific skills. We want them to learn to start, to continue, and to end interactions. And the way that we need them to learn it is with signals. Along with words, gestures, facial and body expression. So we really focus on them knowing how to ask for more and how to stop interactions. And when we're working on it, it's basically, as we had mentioned, start a game, get them hooked on the game, wait to do like the big moment, or just stop the game altogether until they look and request, and then everything should be paired with eye contact along with as they develop more skills. So eye contact isn't always, but other things like gestures, sounds, and words will come as they develop, but always eye contact. And so when you're doing these sensory social routines, because we know that those are the things we're trying to develop, make sure that you're positioned in a way that your child can focus on your face and your body. They may not love it very much initially. So you can do, if your child really is resistant to these sensory social routines, try to do your best guess on what you think would be a good one to build into a routine. And if they're also, they may be very rigid and not want you to mess up the way that they're already doing the routine. So or even to get like interactive enough. So try to do it 3 times in the same way before you give up. And if they totally are crying, then you know that's not the one. But by giving up, or by the things that you may see if they're not interested are them, looking away, walking away. But if they walk away but are still looking at you, then you know that that's a fun routine, because oftentimes they just don't know what to do. But if they're still keeping eye contact and watching what you're doing, then you've got something that you've got their interest with. So here we go. Here's some options. Playing chase, running, and stop. And then telling this, do more chase or more, and then make them say more before you chase them again. You could do row, row, row your boat and stop, row, row, row your boat. And then see if they ask you for more or laugh and look at you. And eventually you want them to maybe sing some of the words, either swinging or jumping or bouncing. So you're stopping and waiting for eye contact and communication. And when they do it, you say, yay, great job, and use your positive affect. And so once you have this routine down with them, try to vary it a little bit and vary the motivating reinforcers, because that way it'll keep them interested and it'll build their attention span. So when you're working with your kiddo during focus time, some of the things you could do are an alternative between, you can alternate between sensory social routines, which we've been talking about. So those are more focused on the social and thinking skills and communication and language and imitation. Those are the things that are built with the sensory social. And then what we're learning about next is object focused routines, which focus more on thinking skills, fine motor skills, manipulating items as well as communication and language and imitation. So when you're working with your kiddo, you want to give them a balanced program, so you kind of alternate between 2 different types of activities, so that you keep them motivated and also keep their bodies active. So object-focused play is the other type. So we talked about sensory social routines, and now we're talking about object-focused play. And so, when you're first in bringing yourself into the play, and I'm not sure exactly what level. I think I have an understanding what level each child is at that's currently in the program, but where your child is, you want to just sort of spend time next to them during focus time and narrate what they're doing, using the words and sound effects. So just letting them play the way that they normally play, but becoming more involved as far as the narrator of the play. You can assist them in play by handing them things, by just helping them out, but don't require or demand or request anything or make them label things for you or anything. Just let them have fun and play, and just watch them and use, weave vocabulary in. Just be a lot of fun with them so that they get used to kind of just having you there, not making demands. And then, but one thing you can do to work on some skills is if you've set up your room in the way where you have things in bins, then use those during this time, even so that they at least have to ask you to open in some way. So once you start joining in the play more, we're definitely tiptoe in. Don't just, this is what we're playing today and this is how we're doing it. It's more of about building a connection. So first you build the connection with them, and then, they start accepting you as a play partner and they start imitating things more from you. Then you can start controlling the materials more and making more demands. But you first have to connect, then and just play their way. So to start joining in the play, first you imitate your child. So what they're playing, you're playing. Ideally, you have the same items as your child has. So if it's cars, you have your own cars, or if it's balls, you can grab a couple. So you're not making them take turns with you, you're not doing anything, you're just kind of playing next to them. If you do something that frustrates them and they protest, then just go back. Like, so every once in a while you may take your car and crash it into their car and go crash, or use the ramp and put the thing down, put your car down the ramp. If they start protesting at any point when you're trying to push it a little bit into interactive play, then just go back to parallel play. And then once you start, while you're playing, you can always show them different things, not make any demands of them doing it, but just show them different ways of using the toy. And then once they start becoming interested because they saw something cool that you elaborated, they may begin to try to imitate. And at any point during this, whether it's when they're doing parallel play or when you're doing more elaborative play, if they start imitating you and trying to do that, then really encourage that, and praise them for that. Wow, you're making it fly like me. Then if they keep imitating the same thing, that's when you want to add a variation. So once they imitate it, say maybe 10 times or so, then you want to teach a variation. So if it was flying back and forth, you might want to fly up and down and up and down, so that they learn different ways of playing with the toys and with the items. And then eventually you will want to be the source of all the cool things. So after they get comfortable with you, then you have to begin to control the materials. So you bring out the ball tower, but you have the balls in a bag that they have to make requests for. And that sort of starts the teacher-student as opposed to just play partner relationship. and so they start doing more imitation of you, or doing things on demand in a more positive way because they're motivated to play with you. You're lots of fun, and they start realizing that if they ask for something, you're going to give it to them for sure. And so then they're motivated to use more language and more communication. But